Today we're going to review the new Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. A hybrid vehicle that doesn't suck to drive, is it actually possible? Let's find out. But first, a RAV4 montage. If you know me, you're well aware that I'm a huge fan of older cars, especially the forgotten cars from the 80s and 90s. While I love the older stuff, they can be a bit needy and may not always be the best choice for a family car. My heart tells me that I should buy a late 90s two-door RAV4, but my mind tells me that isn't exactly practical for hauling around my family. So today, let's take an in-depth look at the new Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. It's extremely efficient, decent looking, and may even be the best RAV4 yet. Let's take it on a road trip and find out if it's any good. The RAV4 was redesigned for 2019 and it looks pretty good. I still like the Mazda CX-5 better, but this is a different approach. While the CX-5 goes for the elegant and luxury look, the RAV4 opts for a more chunky, rugged appearance. The hybrid powertrain is an option on the LE, XLE, Limited, and Standard on this XSE Hybrid. Here we've got the two-tone paint, black 18-inch wheels, black trim, and optional blacked out emblems. And I'm glad that Toyota finally listened and didn't put a gigantic grille on this new design, unlike several of their recent offerings. Do you remember back in '96 when the first-gen RAV4 came to the market? Back then, compact car-like SUVs weren't really much of a thing. The RAV4 was actually quite unique, especially considering they offered this small two-door. The RAV4 was a bit hard to categorize as American buyers were used to larger, boxier, truck-like SUVs like the Ford Explorer. Toyota even marketed them as being different and wacky and not for everyone.
The new RAV4 from Toyota, it's out there.
Fast forward to today, and the latest RAV4 is definitely for everyone. Toyota sells nearly 400,000 of these a year. The RAV4 has long been one of the best choices for a small SUV, and this latest model is no exception. Toyota knows hybrid powertrains. They've been making them for over 20 years. However, their hybrid vehicles aren't exactly known to be fun to drive. With cars like the Prius and Corolla Hybrid, they often feel excruciatingly slow. But this RAV4 Hybrid is a different animal. It's actually quicker than the non-hybrid RAV4s. Under the hood is a 2.5-liter four-cylinder that's paired with two electric motors, making the equivalent of 219 horsepower, up from 203 for the non-hybrid version. That's pretty decent. The transmission is an eCVT, and all-wheel drive is standard for all hybrid RAV4s. Another improvement over the previous gen RAV4 Hybrid is the fuel economy. This is rated for 41 miles per gallon city and 38 highway, or 40 miles per gallon combined. That's a bit more than the Honda CR-V Hybrid and a touch less than the new Ford Escape Hybrid, and way more than the non-hybrid RAV4, which gets 25 city and 33 highway. And we can't talk about the RAV4 Hybrid without mentioning the RAV4 Prime. If you want even better mileage, the 2021 RAV4 Prime promises 38 miles per gallon or 94 miles per gallon equivalent on electric alone. But supplies of the Prime are said to be very limited. Toyota expects to only bring 5,000 to the US for the 2021 model year. So even if you wanted one, you might not be able to get one. If you require decent gas mileage in a small SUV right now, the RAV4 Hybrid might be the way to go. This thing actually has some personality. It's not a luxury car, but overall it does have an upscale appearance. There are a few nice details that you'll notice right away, like the soft touch materials. This one has nice blue stitching everywhere. Speaking of touch, I also quickly came to appreciate the rubberized door pulls, which offer a pleasing texture when shutting the door. That similar texture can be found on the HVAC controls and the storage cubbies. Speaking of storage, there's a decent amount in here. There's a reasonably sized center console, perfect to store some of your kids' things. There are also storage areas up here and here, great for your phones or your kids' toys. Not as much storage space as a Honda CR-V though, but this vehicle is quite roomy. I'm 6'3" and I've got plenty of headroom and plenty of legroom. Seats are quite comfortable, and in this XSE trim, we've got this Softex imitation leather, which looks really nice. The two front seats are heated, but no ventilated seats on the XSE. Power driver's seat with two-way lumbar support, and on the passenger side, nothing. If you're tall, make sure you're the driver and not the passenger because there is no way to lower this passenger seat. Up here, we've got Toyota's Entune 3.0 infotainment system. It's slightly improved over previous Entune systems. The interface is more responsive, it's easier to zoom maps, but it still looks like it was designed a decade ago. Navigation on this system is still not my favorite. I'd much prefer to just use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. The XSE gives you the panoramic rearview camera with dynamic grid lines that move with the car. Up here is this cool optional rearview mirror with camera display. Over here in front of the driver is a nice looking steering wheel with controls for the adaptive cruise control, radio, and driver display. This also has the imitation leather, which feels nice. Though I did notice the steering wheel trim feels a bit cheap. Here we've got the gauges and the driver information display, which at first glance appears quite busy. But after driving the car for a while, you do start to get used to it. You've got big gauges to the left and the right, including this gigantic efficiency gauge on the left. Seems like overkill, but I guess it could help you drive more efficiently if you're staring at that all the time. A bit less legroom than the CR-V, but not far behind. And with the hybrid batteries located under the seats, you'll find that the passenger space is actually the same as the non-hybrid RAV4. Latch anchors for baby seats are easy to get to. With larger rear-facing baby seats, you'll still need to move the front seats up just a bit. I appreciate that the center seat belt comes out of the seat and not the ceiling, and it makes it much easier to install a car seat in the center. Things do get a bit tight when you install a car seat and you still need to carry 4 adult passengers, but it's not terrible, and my parents didn't complain. For your rear passenger comfort, the XSE Hybrid comes with rear vents. We also get 2 USB ports, which honestly should be on every car nowadays. We've got a power liftgate on the XSE, though it is slow. Here in the cargo area, you'll find a generous amount of space, and once again, because those hybrid batteries are located under the seats, this RAV4 Hybrid actually offers the same amount of cargo space as the non-hybrid version. We fit a ton of stuff in here for our recent road trip. We also get a full-size spare tire and a dual level load floor. And no switch to fold the seats up or down from the back. You'll have to reach up here or walk around to the sides. Okay, let's see how this thing is to drive. Let's start with acceleration. Hybrids aren't exactly known for being quick off the line, so let's test it out. Not bad, 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7.5 seconds. It's certainly not blistering fast from a stop, but it has more than enough power for most situations. Passing at freeway speeds is a breeze. In terms of feel, some reviewers have said how they don't like the RAV4's chassis, how it's uninspiring. I think that might just be a bit overstated. Most people will be perfectly happy with how this thing handles and how it rides. It's not too soft, not too harsh. I think overall for a family SUV, you want it to soak up the bumps, but not be so numb that you can't feel the road beneath you. I did feel like the front end was a bit wandery on grooved pavement, but that was my biggest complaint. Now this is the XSE, which is what Toyota calls the sportiest model in the lineup, and it has a sport-tuned suspension, but I'm not really sure there's much about this that I would call all that sporty. It does have firmer damping and a more aggressive spring rate than other RAV4 models. It does feel a touch more crisp, but instead of calling it sporty, I might call it sport-ish. But it's fine. Basically, don't drive a Mazda CX-5 right before you set foot in this car, because the CX-5 is going to be a lot more fun. Overall, the car is incredibly easy to drive. The visibility is excellent all the way around. There are 3 driving modes: normal, eco, and sport. And you can see the colors change when you change the modes. These modes seem to primarily affect how the throttle is mapped. I didn't notice much difference in terms of acceleration or passing power between these different modes. Sport mode has a more responsive throttle, and eco mode is far less responsive, trying to encourage you to conserve gas. There's also a trail mode for light off-roading, which sends a bit more power to the rear, and an all EV mode, which is limited by speed and battery charge, keeping it from being very useful at all. The cabin is pretty quiet with the exception of the droning that happens when you floor it. But overall, a very pleasant place to be. Now, let's talk safety. Toyota always seems to engineer their vehicles to ace crash tests, and this RAV4 is no exception. We've got 8 airbags in here. All RAV4s also have a wide variety of standard safety features, including auto braking, adaptive cruise control, lane departure warning, lane keep assist. This XSE gives you blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, which is optional on lower trims. I've put almost 800 miles on this car, and over the course of this time, with both freeway, back road, and city driving, I've averaged 41 miles per gallon, slightly better than EPA estimates. Let's talk price. Before options, the XSE Hybrid comes in at $34,600. With the premium audio, XSE tech package, fog lights, blacked out logos, door sill protectors, and floor mats, this particular RAV4 XSE Hybrid comes in at $38,307. But let's say maybe you just want a hybrid, but you don't need all these extra features. The RAV4 Hybrid LE starts at $28,650. That's only $1,000 more than the RAV4 LE with all-wheel drive. So if you were already set on getting an all-wheel drive RAV4, I'd certainly recommend just getting the hybrid drivetrain, since you'll likely pay for the extra cost in fuel savings within a couple years. And if you want more efficiency and better performance, see if you can try to track down a RAV4 Prime, but you may have trouble finding one, and dealers may be marking them up because they're in high demand. So, are there any major negatives? Not many, but there is one issue that you'll have to think about. Toyota has acknowledged that the RAV4 Hybrid has an issue where the fuel gauge and distance to empty reading on the display isn't accurate. This happened to me with the test car. I was only able to achieve 380 miles before the display said the tank was empty. I then refilled the tank and was only able to put in 10 gallons, quite a bit shy of the 14.5 gallon tank. There hasn't been a recall, but as of January 2021, Toyota has come up with a fix for affected vehicles. Let's talk competition. You might also be considering the new Honda CR-V Hybrid. The CR-V Hybrid has a bit more passenger space, but less cargo space. The RAV4 is also slightly more powerful. How about the Ford Escape Hybrid? Starting price are just about the same. The Escape gets slightly better mileage in the city, but it also has significantly less cargo space. If you're in the market for a fuel-efficient small SUV, the RAV4 Hybrid should be right there at the top of your list. After living with this RAV4 Hybrid for the last week, driving it nearly 800 miles around town, on canyon roads, and even on a road trip, I think the Hybrid is actually a better all-around vehicle than the non-hybrid version. What do you think? Are you in the market for a fuel-efficient small SUV? Which one would you go for? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing if you like my perspective on other new and used cars and videos about all of the forgotten, obscure, and strange cars that I purchase. Thanks so much. See you soon.